This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hello and welcome to Canada Reads American Style. This is Tara. I'm here with a special guest tonight. I have Alma Sarai with me. Hi, Alma. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, Alma Sarai is a Canadian artist, actor, musician, and arts advocate based in Hamilton, Burlington, and Toronto, Ontario. She graduated from the Theatre and Drama Studies program at the University of Toronto Mississauga, a joint program with Sheridan College. Alma has been deeply involved with Tottering Biped Theatre since 2016, serving as Associate Artistic Director and Associate Producer. She has performed in every Shakespeare by Nature production since its inception, portraying roles such as Hermia in A Midsummer Night's Dream, Lady Macbeth in Macbeth, among numerous other roles and plays. Since 2020, she has also been the producing director of Tottering Biped Theatre's Summer Shakespeare Project, an annual festival held at Dundurn Castle, just down the road from me here in Hamilton, co-led with Trevor Copp. Again, welcome, Alma.
Thanks, Tara. It's so, I say this all the time, but it's so surreal having your bio read aloud.
I can imagine it would be, I don't know what my bio would be. It would not be like this, but it would be a really weird experience having someone read to you
Yeah, it's a
what you've
nice trip
done.
down memory lane too.
Yeah, nice,
Yes, yeah.
nice. Well, we're here to talk about the Summer Shakespeare Project because you and I met through a mutual friend at like a fundraiser for the Tottering Biped Theatre. So let's start off. Tell us about Tottering Biped Theatre.
Well, so Tottering Biped is a physical theater and social justice-based company that was founded in 2009 by our artistic director, Trevor Copp, who is a mime, one of Canada's top mimes. He's fantastic. He went to the Marcel Marceau School for Mime and started in Burlington, went to school, did all these things. And then around 2016 is when I would have met him. He came into my class while I was in theater school and taught a dance lesson.
Oh,
Part of theater school is you kind of want to become a well-rounded performer. So you learn basic singing, basic dancing if you didn't know it already. And he came in and taught us ballroom and partner dancing. And when he finished the class, he turned to us and said, I am working on this project where I do Shakespeare at the Royal Botanical Gardens in the summertime. My jaw dropped. I thought, sorry, you're telling me there's going to be a Shakespeare in the park kilometers from where I live? And so that was something that he had always believed in, was something that you don't need to do Shakespeare the regular way. You can do it in a way where you take these beautiful passages of text and slash them right out and create movement pieces to give you the story from the same perspective or from a different perspective. And we'll get into it as we go, because reading one of the books you recommended actually brought back a lot of memories of how we stage things. But everything Trevor does is really based in movement, and everything Tottering Biped does is based, again, in that social justice point of view of why this play, why now, why this text, why now, but also how can we physicalize it and make it accessible to folks who maybe English is their second language. Maybe they are not so into poetic verse, right? But they want to see an entertaining show. And so when we met and I auditioned and then I got into the company, and when I finished theater school, he said, how would you like to become a producer? I said, I've never done that before, but I'll give it a go. And it was just so exciting to work so close to home, especially even when we moved to Dundurn Castle a few years ago. There was just this familiarity of the area, and it made me feel like I could achieve great things in my own backyard. And being able to kind of, I want to say, parent this project in a way has been really rewarding and fulfilling and difficult. But Tottering Biped, I mean, 2009, that's many years that it's been founded, but this will be our 8th summer Shakespeare project, Shakespeare by Nature. 8th, and then 2 hiatus years. So this will be
Wow.
it's wild. Yeah. Next year is the
Yeah.
10th anniversary of the project. And it's amazing to think that I've spent 10 years of my life doing it. It's remarkable and very wonderful, but that's the company essentially. It's just the two of us, and then an amazing board of directors and amazing actors and technicians that we hire along the way.
Okay, so at the event that we met, I got to see Trevor perform. Like, and I've never seen like someone do what would be the word? Mime to like perform as a mime, like in person. It was pretty amazing, actually. It was like a weird connection you have with this person who's performing, and it's very physical. So it was beautiful. Is that also then? So I didn't realize that there was such a strong physical element to your performances. Does that explain the name, the
Yeah, yeah.
Tottering Bible? Okay,
The idea that you're kind of, yeah, you're on 2 feet, but you're never really standing still, are you?
yeah, that's very cool. Okay, tell us about the Summer Shakespeare program and this year's play.
When the project started in 2016, part of the idea was to rejuvenate the botanical gardens where we were performing, because they had just renovated the rock garden. And we did a 2 weekend, our first summer was a 2 weekend run of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which, when you think of Shakespeare in the Park, that is the first one you think of, really. That's the first one I think of because of the forest and the fairies and the running and the getting lost in love and in the darkness and that sort of thing. And every subsequent year that followed, we aimed to do an interpretation that perhaps people hadn't seen before. And the first 4 years was at the Royal Botanical Gardens, and then there was the pandemic, of course, which really devastated the theater industry and the
Mhm.
performance industry. And we actually, as a company, pivoted towards other forms of media and other forms of performance. And then when we moved to Dundurn Castle, we did a remount of the Midsummer Night's Dream. And it's just been amazing. We graduated from 2 weekends to 5 shows a week to 3 weeks of 5 shows a week to 6 shows a week. It just kind of has this effect where we have grown this audience and this following that I'm very grateful for. And in a complete 180, I feel this coming summer, 2025, in August, we will be doing the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged. It's essentially this madcap hour and a half where 3 actors attempt to portray and perform all 37 of Shakespeare's plays within that time frame. It was written by Adam Long, Daniel Singer, and Jess Winfield, where they essentially played themselves and they jumped around and did this parody version of every single Shakespeare play. It's been revised since. I think the original was written in the mid-90s, and then there was a rewrite in the mid-2000s, and then there was a post-pandemic rewrite. We are doing the 2022 post-pandemic rewrite. There's going to be a vaccination joke in there
Yep,
somewhere,
yep.
and drawing attention to world politics, but in a way where it invites the audience to draw the similarities between humanity then and humanity now, which I think Shakespeare has really captured
Mhm.
somehow. Like, the word timeless comes to mind, where it feels like it can be done in any way, shape, or form at any time. And I think that's part of the magic of it. But it's not so much as a play as it is a vaudeville show, where the comedic timing and wildly ambitious actors are trying to do all of the plays in a single performance, and things go wrong. And it's really wonderful, and it's a departure for us with it's only a cast of 3.
Yeah.
We love having big casts, and we just thought, why don't we try something totally different? The world is a mess. The theater world is really in a place where we're fighting to be supported.
Mm-hmm.
So why not do something that will be really fun for the company and just let her rip at that point? It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to it.
It sounds amazing. I cannot wait to see it. It's going to be so good. So now you gave me a perfect segue because I have to ask this question. Why is Shakespeare relevant in 2025? And I don't mean that in like a snooty way, but people say it all the time, right? And I really want to hear it from someone who's like, you're living and breathing Shakespeare this summer.
Yeah, you're right. That is a question. It's always, but why? I do some Shakespeare workshops with another Hamilton-based company, Shakespeareans, where we go into schools and we talk about this exact question: why
Mhm.
is Shakespeare relevant now? To why is this hundreds of years dead white male playwright still relevant to a modern, diverse, more well, not fully equal, but more equal
Mhm.
audience, right? And at the end of the day, for me, it's always that if something, no matter how old or new it is, speaks to you, if it makes you light up, if it gives you the inspiration to feel a bigger feeling than you've ever had, then it's always worth it. It's always relevant. It could be music for anyone, it could be art, it could be theater, it could be Shakespeare. And for me, that's what it was. I remember distinctly being, I think I must have been 12. So it was before we would have studied Shakespeare in school. But I think even my grade 8 English teacher had us read a shorter version of A Midsummer Night's Dream. I could be wrong, but even then, the teachers knew that we should be exposed to these classics, and why are they classics is another question altogether, because there are hundreds of contemporaries of Shakespeare's not that weren't just writing in English that you can also read and look at. And part of my part of the joy of my training was learning about these other playwrights and reading them. And I think again it just comes back to that idea of what is the big feeling that you can't quite put into words, which we've all had. And when I first read it, when I was about 12, and I was given this Shakespeare monologue from Twelfth Night, for it was a Malvolio monologue, and in the monologue it was he's reading a letter that he thinks that the woman that he's fallen in love with has written for him, and it's actually a really cruel prank. But I remember reading it, and something happened in my body and my mind and my soul where I just felt seen and heard and understood by these words, by this story, that I didn't even know the whole story, but I remember walking away and thinking, this is great. And I went home and I told my parents, and my parents, who are incredible literary nerds, thank goodness, they go, oh yeah, well, here you go. We've got shelves groaning with stuff. You want to read it?
Yeah.
Here's the Complete Works, here's the Pelican, here's the encyclopedia, and I would be sitting there reading it and I would say, listen to this. And I would read these passages that just felt like, what captures love, what captures jealousy, what captures that embarrassed feeling you get when you've said something by accident that you didn't mean to say. And it just, I think it was Ethan Hawke actually that said this in an interview before as well, where Shakespeare kind of, whether it was on purpose or by genius or by serendipity, captured in the English language these big feelings that we as humans sometimes can't even express. And I think even if you put it in a different time frame, you put it in a different circumstance, there's something about it that just speaks volumes more than some other things. Like, it's funny when I try to explain it, I get a little passionate about it because it's true. You can't always really explain when art or literature speaks to you, but, like, even when I think about some of my favorite books and someone says, "Well, but why?" You kinda go, "It just is." It speaks to you. You feel seen and heard and understood by these pages that are there in front of you, but also in the case of Shakespeare, they were never meant to be read, right? They were meant to be performed, and reading them out loud to yourself or performing them to yourself is like unreal. And then you go see it for the first time and you think, "Oh, that's what it could look like." And the gift of being able to read it for yourself is you get to use your imagination and make the choice of what it looks like, what it sounds like, and he gave us all the clues. Whether it was fully him or not, right, is okay. I will suspend the disbelief and just say Shakespeare is an overarching idea, whether it's one person or not, but it's relevant if it speaks to you. I'm not gonna say it's relevant for everyone, but I think that in my lifetime and in many lifetimes before and after mine, it speaks to the human existence, and getting to perform it is getting to perform anything is a gift, but there's something special about the pentameter and the rhythm and something that's captured. I could go on, but I'll just ramble. It's just again, it's he was more concise than I am, right?
I love your passion, though. Your passion says it all, and it is true. I find that the more we love something, the more difficult it is to pinpoint why we love that. Like, if I read a book that I don't like, I could probably, and I've done it to Rebecca, my co-host, leave like a 20-minute message going, "Oh my god, this is why this book," I don't wanna say sucked, whatever, sucked, and be boom, bam, 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 and just the poor woman has to listen to a 20-minute diatribe about it. But if it's something I love, you're just like, I loved it. It was beautiful, and it gets you. And I
Yeah.
that's totally what you're saying, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's good too. Any sort of reaction is kind of the point,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You want to strike a chord, whether it's good, bad, or somewhere else on the spectrum, but
Yep.
it's awesome. And then there are people that kinda go, "Oh, it must be this way. What do you mean it has to be done this way?" And you're kinda like, "Alright, that's you. Cool."
I was gonna say, how can it not be relevant? Because your group is performing it. Like Stratford, the it's being performed all over the world anyways, not just in Stratford, Ontario. But yeah, and the Shakespearean company, I actually do have a connection to that as well because my oldest did the Shakespearean program for I
Yay!
think
Yeah,
about 3 years, and she loved it. And I'll be honest, there was nothing better than watching this group of like young adults, very young adults sometimes, be on the stage, like, at the end of the season, getting to watch them perform. It was amazing to watch these young kids, like I'm like, "They get it." I'm like, "They get it better than I am." It's amazing.
yeah, it's like a key to unlock potential,
Yeah.
which I'm sure Shakespeare didn't mean to do, but it's amazing that it's been that key to a lot of people's success and a lot of people's passion and a lot of people's careers, and it's because there are so many other playwrights that could do that for you. It's
Mhm.
just a nice place to start because it's so readily available
Yeah.
and there's so much content, and it's oh, I'm glad your oldest did that. That's great. I think every child should do something artistic.
Yeah. She was doing she was involved, like, year-round school year-round in a with a theater company, and that's how she got hooked up with Marvin and Shakespeareans for a
Yeah.
couple of summers, and
Shout
she
out to Shakespeareans in Hamilton.
yeah,
Love it.
it was good program, good program. Okay, you mentioned books, because when we first met too, we did I that's how I came up to you, and I was like, "I have a book podcast," and then we talked about some Shakespeare related books and stuff like this. What are you bringing with you today? What books?
The book that you recommended was, Rough
Hmm.
by Rod Carley,
Yeah.
and I finished it yesterday.
Yeah. And did you enjoy it?
I did. I enjoyed I admittedly, I enjoyed the second half better,
Hmm.
and I think what it was is that it sort of demanded a certain focus. This piece of literature, like, the way the book was written demanded the same focus that Shakespeare demands, right? He demands your full attention of the who, what, where, when, why, and the book was so rich with reference for me,
Yeah.
historically speaking, and in terms of the what is the word for someone who's written a lot of stuff and they have
Oh, prolific? No.
mm, it is prolific, it is, but
Hmm.
just the way that he referenced so many of the other plays and things that if you know Shakespeare, if you're a Shakespeare nerd, you kind of go, very nice, a
Yeah.
nice little nod, or the fact that every third page had a pun on it.
Yeah.
And it felt dramatic. It felt
Hmm.
like
It was very visual.
yes, that's exactly right. I love those kinds of novels where it's so rich in in visuals that you can really picture it in your mind
Yeah.
and in front of you, and you end up kind of whispering to yourself as you're reading because you wanna be in there, you wanna be in the world. I had a similar experience with Cornelia Funke's, Inkheart series.
Okay. I don't know that one. I'll have to check that
Great
out.
young adult series that was another unlocker for me. I think
Okay.
it's a German author that was translated into English. Beautiful stuff where it made me wanna be able to sketch
Hmm.
'cause I can't draw to save my life. Sing? Sure. Act? Yes. I
Yeah.
cannot. Uh, and this book sort of had that same effect on me where I was just imagining the big house in Stratford. I was imagining the plague. I was imagining
Yeah.
these modern references that were kind of
Hmm.
slid right in. It felt like Anne Juliet, the musical, and it felt like a Shakespeare play, but it also felt like a show like Once Upon a Time, where they take
Hmm.
the classic Disney stories and they put them into a soap opera sort of thing.
Yep.
Without the over dramatics, but it really sparked my lived experience.
Yeah.
Like, there's that one part of the book where, it's Shakespeare's birthday, and his family is sitting around the table, and they're talking about, "Well, what is your career anyway? What are you really doing?" And, "Oh, well, you wrote one play, who cares?"
Yeah.
And then, like, it's like you can't escape the criticism of your friends and family no matter what you're
No.
doing, but
No. Not even Shakespeare.
not even Shakespeare can escape his mother saying, "You should have gone into the family business, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have gone into performing arts." And the punk element to it felt so like, it felt like the perfect book to read before summer Shakespeare, but also during Pride Month.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he does some great stuff with gender, right, in it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Which
the talking
again,
to animals and the
yeah, if anyone questions the relevance of Shakespeare, like like he brings in gender issues, the pandemic, all like in Shakespeare's world, but they're all modern day issues that we can all relate to.
yeah, and history kinda keeps repeating itself.
Mhm. Mhm. It was long listed for the Stephen Leacock Award as well this year too. So
Yeah,
he's doing well with that book.
I'm glad. I'm gonna read some of his other
Yeah.
stuff because I hadn't read Rod Carley before, and
No, I haven't either.
I better read another one if I invite him to the show. Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh my gosh, you totally should.
I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll, reach out because I did a show in theater school where we referenced Margaret Atwood,
Yeah.
and on a limb, the one of the cast members tweeted at her saying, "We're doing this show where, it's about the history of sex in Canada," which is another good book, How to Make Love in a Canoe.
Oh, I've heard of
It's
that one. I haven't
it's a
read it
great
though.
book.
Okay.
We did a whole play based on it, and there was, of course, we made reference to her, and we tweeted at her saying, "You should come see our show," and she wrote back saying, "That would be nice. I'm not sure if I would ever make love in a canoe, but thanks for the invitation." Which is just
Okay,
so
even
Margaret
that
Atwood to
alone,
say.
I was gonna say that's just perfect there. That is just perfect there.
It was perfect. But yeah, that book was very enjoyable. The other 2 that I kinda had to think about it.
Yeah.
The best one I've read Shakespeare related from the actor's point of view so far was Judi Dench's. It was a
Oh,
biography called,
yeah.
Shakespeare: The Man Who Pays the Rent.
Oh, okay, I will have to check that out.
Like, from an actor's point of view, to read her experience playing these famous roles, it kinda goes through her career from beginning to end where sh you know, the chapter on Hamlet, because she played Ophelia and Gertrude, so she played the young woman and the older woman, and
Yeah,
it kind of gives you that sort of meaty that meat and potatoes of the actor's life and what her process was like, but also her take on these characters that we know, and it's remarkable how many of the things you look at it and you go, "That's exactly how I felt when I played it."
that's crazy.
Or it right? Or, "That's totally different from how I felt it.
Mhm.
Isn't that remarkable?" And she had a director that she had worked with come in and write it with her, so they would sit down and go through her notes in her scripts, and then he would make her watch things, and she hated it. She went, "Oh, no, I don't like watching it," but then
Yeah,
he would stop and say, "So what was it like in the rehearsal room?" "Well, we were told to take risks because Shakespeare is all about once you know the verse, it's all very human and you just go." Or it was about, well, what's the physicality? How do the words live in your body? Or was it a matter of, this is a comedy, how can we play the comedy? It doesn't matter what you're feeling because that's not what we're playing. We're not playing the emotion, we're playing the joke, right? And the crossover in my mind between Judi Dench's book and Rough was kind of also lovely because you kind of start connecting the dots of, oh yeah, Shakespeare's kind of everywhere in the
yeah,
English language. And she talked about how when she went to Africa and did these plays in Africa in English, and how they still made sense somehow, right?
yeah.
That's a great book. I devoured it in like 2.5 days, and I'm not a fast reader, but she's so cool. She talks about
She really is.
she talks about working with Maggie Smith and her late husband, and just how specifically during The Merchant of Venice, where her and her husband were in the play together, and they would go home and they almost felt like they had to wash their hands to get the character out of them because they just didn't necessarily agree with what the characters were doing, but that means it was living in them, right?
Yeah.
But that book, Judi Dench's book was great, and then the nonfiction book that I read last summer was The Great White Bard by Farah Karim Cooper,
Oh, yes,
which
you
is the
mentioned this
one.
one to me.
Yes, it's a series of essays where essentially Dr. Cooper, she, as a woman of color, talks about how you can still love Shakespeare as a person of color, despite the fact that it doesn't treat them with kindness in
Mhm.
in the words and in the practice, and it breaks down sort of these ideas that in Shakespeare's time that would have been the way it was, and similar to the idea that you can't erase history when you know the exact history and what was going on in England at the time, or what Shakespeare was making reference to, because playwrights aren't writing for a modern audience, they're not writing for a past audience, they're writing for the audience at the time, the contemporary. And he was writing for that time and those themes and that idea. And there's a beautiful passage about Cleopatra coming in on the boat. You don't see her.
Hmm.
Shakespeare was very specific about this, where he wrote a monologue that someone else delivers describing what Cleopatra looks like. And when you look at it, it makes references to, darkness being a bad thing and a dangerous thing, and how it's kind of that sort of idea has carried through history, where dark and dangerous is synonymous with the darkness of your skin being bad.
Hmm.
And it's a great, great book for anyone that loves Shakespeare, but also wants to better understand how you yourself can take in information and take in artistry while being informed, but also self-reflective, right?
Yeah.
Because as I said, like, these words resonate with you, whether it's a good or a bad. But when you have a better idea of what exactly was going on at the time, and she really explains it really well, and but also in a digestible way.
Hmm.
And that was really informative, like the idea that Shakespeare was marketed to be this great white figure, this godlike white man that was the greatest of all England, as this mantelpiece figure, especially after he died, where it's like, yes, sculpture at the time was white. If it wasn't white, it wasn't good. Marble was white. If it wasn't white, it wasn't good. Shakespeare was white. He was the greatest. Like, the world around him at that time lifted him up to be the example. Which has that served us well in terms of theater history? Maybe. It did set an example, but it also encourages you to look at beyond Shakespeare. Why did they choose him? Well, because he was writing what the people wanted and set this example of whiteness. And it's a really great informative
Yeah.
read. You mentioned Stratford earlier. There's a great book that my friend Sean D'Souza Coelho wrote called Whenever You're Ready. This is just a side note, but it also kind of captures the actor's life doing Shakespeare. It's a biography about Nora Pawley, who was the longest running stage manager at Stratford. I think she was
Oh,
there for
okay.
35 years or something. And so that's very Canadiana, very slings and arrows, if you know slings and arrows, where it kind of gives you the idea of what it was like to work in the Stratford Festival and work on Shakespeare and get to watch Shakespeare over and over and over again and see what
Yeah.
gets done. And so if I were to go on a Shakespeare road trip, Rough, The Great White Bard, Judi
Yeah.
Dench's book, and Whenever You're Ready would be kind of the toolkit to kind of give someone an idea of what it's like for me as a performer, but also what my lived experience has been doing Shakespeare and the joy that I get from it. So
Yeah.
those are all great.
Those are, thank you. Thank you. Those are really great titles. I love that. Thank you, Alma. Okay. Do you have a favorite play?
You sent me this ahead of time, so I did have to think about it.
Yep. I know. I was going to say, is it a really difficult question for you?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I can tell you my least favorite is Othello,
Oh, okay.
um, because I just can't get behind any of the characters. you know, it's one of those things where even when I read it, even when I saw it, you keep thinking, this could all be solved if they just talked to each other. But I respect it
Yep.
for what it is, and because that's where the drama comes from. But me as a performer and as a watcher, I get so invested in the characters and the things they're going through that you just want to help. And that one makes me so anxious, thinking, "Oh gosh, if they just sat down and talked about it, it would be so much better." But I did love performing in Pericles, Prince of Tyre. when
Oh,
I was in
okay.
school. That's one of the what they call the romances.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with that one.
It's like pirates, and you think one of the characters is dead and she's not, and it's it's one of the later works that came when he wasn't writing histories anymore, and his fame was starting to kind of shift, but they were much longer and they were more like a saga. So in the same area is also I think Timon, not Timon of Athens, but Cymbeline, and some of the lesser known titles. They're not as poetic. The rhythm is different. The stories are different. I think a Winter's Tale is technically a romance as well. Stratford's doing that right now. But Pericles was so fun. I got to dance. I got to be a princess. You get to kind of be reunited with your lost daughter and your lost husband, and these beautiful big emotions that we crave, right? We crave to
Yeah.
see them and we crave to say them. Just getting to say things like, where have you been? I've missed you. There is no greater gift than what is now, like those kind of sentiments that make us cry. Or
Mhm.
me cry. I don't know about you, but I definitely cry. And I loved playing Lady Macbeth because it was a challenge,
Mhm.
and because there's so many ways that I think women, especially through every wave of feminism, have thought about it. It's always fascinating to think about the history of a character and how they read to people in different interpretations, but also in different phases of the century and different phases of time and place. And,
Mhm.
I don't think Lady Macbeth would be a character allowed in some places in the world right now.
Yeah.
And that makes it dangerous, and not dangerous, but
Yeah.
provocative and interesting. And it gives you a responsibility, it gives you a heft.
Yeah. Well, even I mean, she's dark, but most women no, I'm not gonna speak for everyone. Uh, I see her motivation. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, you can still understand where she's coming from,
yeah.
which is also frightening in itself, right? Like,
Oh,
you're like,
frightening.
yeah.
All we want is to, for me, I want to be able to see myself, but I also want to be able to see a side of humanity that I haven't seen or
Mhm.
understood. I want to understand. I want to see and try to empathize with what the characters are going through. Not everyone feels that way, and that's okay. But for me as an audience, I guess because I'm coming from that actor point of view, is even if I don't understand, I understand,
Yeah.
right? And I think a lot of the time Shakespeare does that, where you kind of go, why on earth would they do that?
Yeah.
I think I get it.
I do t I know what you're saying, like, you understand. I don't understand in the way that, yes, that is how I would behave, but I understand in that I know where your motivation is coming from for you to
Yes.
do what you just did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like
It,
that in books too. I look for that in books as well. It's the
oh,
power
yeah.
of story, right? It's
It
the power
is.
of story.
Absolutely. I mean, I had an acting teacher that said, you can't tell another person that you don't think they would do that, because unless it's happening to you, you don't know what you would do. And it's the
Yep.
same when you're acting, right? You get to make a choice and you can see how you might feel doing the action, but you cannot speak for anyone else or yourself until it's actually going on, right?
Mhm.
And so hard to pick a favorite,
Yeah.
but
Well, you've done a good job. Okay, so you've inspired me. I'm really excited to watch Shakespeare this summer.
I'm
Tell us
glad.
when, like, give me the details, the dates, a website, how we purchase tickets.
Yes, so we are doing the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged in August at Dundurn Castle Park in Hamilton. It's along York Boulevard, right around the back of the castle. If you've ever been, come early, do the tour. They're great. But we open Tuesday, August 12th. The shows run Tuesdays to Saturdays until August 30th. So we have 3 weeks, 5 performances a week. They all start at 7 p.m., weather permitting.
Okay.
We will not perform if it's raining. We will, if it's wet, yes. If it's damp, yes, but not if it's fully raining. But we're there 7 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday. That's when we're doing the Complete Works of Shakespeare abridged. On Sundays is the special feature where Trevor Copp, our artistic director, great Canadian mime, will be doing his Carnival of the Animals mime show with a piano and two pianists, what they call two dueling pianists. He will be doing the Carnival of the Animals by Camille Saint-Saëns, Sundays only, but same time. So Shakespeare runs Tuesday through Saturday. Mime is on Sunday, 7 p.m., weather permitting. Tickets will be available on our website, totteringbiped.ca. It'll be under a donor box link. Donor box is an incredible third-party service where you can make a contribution to the show. It's pay what you can. So bring a blanket, bring a friend. Cash at the door is king. Cash is king. It's Hamlet at this point. You know, Prince of Denmark would prefer cash, and it's recommended $20. On Donor Box, however, once it's live, there will be an option for a picnic package where if you make a contribution of $40, $20 goes to the show, $20 goes to a picnic curated by the Market Box Market down the street. They're fantastic. They give you a little box with either a sandwich or charcuterie, a little cookie, a little drink. We have loved partnering with them as well. But yeah, the donor box link will be on our website by the time I log off tonight.
Excellent. And we will put the link to the website in our notes as well, in the episode notes.
Yeah, so you'll find the donor box link. There's a QR code. You can make your contribution ahead of time, or just show up on the day.
Yep.
Make your contribution then. There will be awesome volunteers there. I will be there. I will be happy to see you either way.
Beautiful. Okay, so Shakespeare in the Park with beautiful Dundurn Castle in beautiful Hamlet with picnic. Come on. That's perfect. That's a perfect summer evening.
It kind of is, right? Like bring
It
a little
is.
bug spray, bring a little sunscreen, but bring a little blanket, a chair, but we'll take good care of you over there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alma.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, and best of luck. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks and thanks and thanks, as Shakespeare would say.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style, and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.